Less than 2 hours to go until Donald Trump delivers a primetime speech to the nation, his first ever from the Oval Office. The topic, of course, why we need the wall, why Democrats should hand over the money for it now. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that wall is at the center of the ongoing government shutdown, and the president's arguing there is no other option.
We have an absolute crisis, and of criminals and gang members coming through. It is national security. It's a national emergency.
And as for the Democrats, they're not exactly sold on the idea, nor on tonight's speech.
I expect the president to lie to the American people. Why do I expect this? Because he has been lying to the American people, and his spokespeople continue lying to the American people.
And if you're not concerned by the 7,600 plus lies Trump has told so far in his presidency, per the Washington Post, perhaps this gives you some pause.
This should have been done by all of the presidents that preceded me, and they all know it. Some of them have told me that we should have done it.
Well, spokespeople for Obama, Bush, Clinton, and Jimmy Carter himself have all since said that they told the president no such thing. So I'm not sure who exactly that leaves. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Schumer are planning to deliver a joint rebuttal to follow the president's speech tonight, which all the major networks have agreed to air as well. Joined now by Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times reporter Farah Stockman. Farah, nice to see you. And Glen Johnson, where have you been? Former Boston Globe and Associated Press reporter, covered 5 presidential campaigns before he joined John Kerry's staff at the State Department. His forthcoming book on the 21st century diplomacy is Window Seat in the World. Glen, it's great to have you back in town. Thanks for being here. So a bunch of people have cited the network's refusal to carry Obama's speech on immigration in 2014 and saying what's good for the goose, you can finish it. Should the networks have denied time to Donald Trump tonight?
No way. This is his first speech. This is about the subject that has shut down our federal government, or elements of it, for 18 days now. 800,000 people are probably not going to get a paycheck in the next few days. So I definitely think that it's worthy. They have a fiduciary responsibility to let him come out and make his case. As a communications person, I cannot understand why the White House didn't look for this opportunity sooner. You just cannot argue this case through 140 or 280 character tweets. You have to really, he had the absolute opportunity to go out and explain to the American people why he was doing what he did, and he's only doing it now so far into this whole debate.
You share the notion the networks have an obligation to be doing this? Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to say no to the president who wants to talk about this.
But well, as I said, there are 7,000 plus lies according to the Washington Post, plus this thing about the prior presidents. But I happen to agree with both of you, but then I say to myself, CNN is talking about a crawl potentially at the bottom of the screen with a contemporaneous fact-checking. I mean, obviously, facts do have to be checked, but are some of these places not going overboard? I mean, there'll be a rebuttal by the Democrats, at which time they can say what they consider to have been misrepresented, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to have a gut check about what, I mean, obviously there's a portion of the American people that are going to believe Trump and agree with him no matter what he says or does.
You've spoken to a lot of them around the country.
And then there are people who, no matter what Trump does, are going to hate him. So he's speaking tonight to that portion of independents that are persuadable. That some would call them Trump curious. People who just sort of voted for him thinking that maybe he was going to bring a better change. He's talking to them, and the question is whether they believe him or not.
Do you buy that? Because a lot of people think he's not talking to them. He, once again, is just talking to his base and Ann Coulter, I guess. And, by the way, there's a poll that PBS did with at National Public Radio, PBS NewsHour in Marist, late November, early December. 50% said the wall was not a priority at all. 19% not an immediate priority at 69. A mere 28% said it should be an immediate priority. Is he really trying to win over those independents that Farah mentioned tonight? Or is it just to say to his base, don't worry, even though Ann Coulter says I'm going to cave, I am not going to cave?
He should be trying to win over those people. And I think that there is a persuasive argument to be made for some of the policy that he's pursuing. The problem with Donald Trump is that it always devolves into a debate about tactics. It's Trump tactics sort of versus policy prescriptions. And so there's not been this airing of the policy that's actually under
What's the
debate.
policy? What's the argument for the policy that he should be making tonight?
Listen, I traveled around the world with the Secretary of State. Everywhere we went, either he or the President had to hand over their passport. There's border control throughout this world, and there's a reason to debate whether or not there should be a border control in the United States of America.
By the way, Democrats, his opponents, are not arguing there shouldn't be border control. They're saying that the wall is not the border control that the American people need, right?
But you get into this whole argument with him, the Trump tactics part of it, where we're going to have a wall, it's going to be concrete and steel slats, Mexico is going to pay for it. You don't get into the policy, you get into the semantics of it. And that's why he should use this opportunity tonight to get into the policy of what he is trying to prevent from the country. It's not 4,000 terrorists coming over the border. It's about having some
Since
meter.
they didn't come over the border.
It's about having some meter on the entry into our country.
Look, he's obviously exaggerating the case or the crisis at the border, but I do think the Democrats risk also overstating their case. When Nancy Pelosi says that the wall is immoral, we have 700 miles of wall, right? Are they immoral? Should we take it down? When ordinary Americans hear that a wall is immoral, they might say, well, why? That doesn't ring true to me. And so I think that this is a symbolic fight right now. This is a fight about symbolism. Immigration is a difficult issue. Reasonable people can disagree about it. Why are we shut down over this? This is symbolism.
You said, Glenn, a couple of minutes ago, I don't understand why Trump's people didn't say you got to do this kind of thing earlier. I also don't understand why Trump doesn't say in every speech, let me be clear about this. The Democrats won't give me $5 billion for a wall, but a year ago, they were willing to give me $25 billion for a wall. And he doesn't have to tell the second half of the story, in return for which they wanted protection for 800,000 Dreamers. That seems to me to be a pretty powerful argument that's not in the equation.
And that seemed like a deal to be had very early on. Lindsey Graham talked about that, Dreamers for wall. And
Coulter won't like it. Isn't that? But I'm serious. Isn't that really what it comes down to?
Well, you got somebody now that's clinging to what had brung him here, and that is this base of support that he's had. And you have people like her and others saying that he will lose re-election.
Well, he told that base 212 times that Mexico was going to pay for the wall, too.
It's a little awkward now,
yeah.
right?
This national emergency thing, and there's a lot of speculation. Is he going to say it tonight? Is he going to threaten it tonight? I, for one, am really worried about this. Not even so much vis-a-vis the wall, but around the precedent this might set where the President of the United States decides that there's a national emergency where most objective people suggest there is not, as precedent for him seizing unilateral power and other kinds of stuff. Am I overwrought about this thing or no?
I think it's something to worry about.
Do you?
I don't think in this instance that's necessarily what's going to happen, but my biggest concern watching this now for the last 2 years has been the potential for a constitutional crisis. When you
Over
have,
this?
Not just this, but something. When you have a situation where there could be an order given and somebody double clutches somewhere along the way, that is a real problem for our country. If you have somebody in the military who gets an order from the commander-in-chief and doesn't follow through with it, and you have people below that person in the chain of command saying, no, we take our orders and we follow them, all of a sudden you could have a real problem in our country.
Like that order might be build a wall under a national emergency.
Or, where are we going in Syria, or what might happen with North Korea, et cetera.
We've seen this.
We only have a minute left. Can you craft quickly a solution that both sides could buy into and save face here? Is it the Dreamer deal all over again? What is the end game here?
I think right now we're looking at, Pelosi does not want to give Trump a victory in this case, and I think Trump knows that.
So is the government closed till 2020?
No. They can't. This can't sustain forever. But they, each side doesn't want to. They don't want to compromise because their base doesn't want them to compromise.
Can you craft a compromise in 15 seconds?
I think that there's going to be a solution when we have more of these TSA workers calling in sick and other things like that. When it actually affects the average American person, nobody cares about the 800,000 people who aren't getting paychecks, but when they can't get through an airport quickly, that's when
they think their side
deal.
is going to be blamed for it. That's when it's going to end.
Maybe so. Glenn, it's great to see you again.
Good
Thanks
to see
so
you,
much,
Jim.
Farah. Great to see you as always. Really appreciate your time, both of you.